First used LinkedIn in 2008 when it was primarily just a place to park your resume, and it's grown into much, much more, and that's really what I want to talk about. Some of you have been using your LinkedIn probably for a while, and you've got it in pretty good shape. Hopefully some of my suggestions will help you to pick a category, pick an area that maybe you need a little help, and I'll offer some suggestions. If you notice, here, I'll show you at the end, here's an address where you can go and get a copy of the slides. There's lots of examples. I'll probably have to skip some of them to fit the time, and some of them are maybe a little harder to read on the screen, so I'd recommend you. And also on that file, there's a slideshow there's a checklist of improving and using LinkedIn. So perhaps you've been confronted with this. The one-page resume. You know, you can't get everything on there. Well, come to the rescue, LinkedIn. LinkedIn allows you to get everything on your resume and add so much more that to sell yourself for networking, for any number of reasons. So how many of you have a LinkedIn account already? I assume if you're a business student, you should have. You've probably heard quite a bit. How many are active? When I say active, you go there and do something once a week. So hopefully I can correct that. Good for you. Good for you. So it's a good place. Several reasons to benefit. It's a personal branding hub. And if you haven't heard of the concept of personal branding, if you think about everyone has a reputation, do you not? Do you agree you have a reputation? And what is that? How people see you. What's their impression of you? And that impression could be online or offline. So personal branding and a place when people go search your name, LinkedIn is the perfect place. It's I think it's now at almost 700 million users. So it's a very strong domain. And when you have that and you have optimized as they've instructed and you've included some activity, LinkedIn will come up first. And from LinkedIn you can lead people to your other professional sites. It also is a place to meet and learn from professionals. And that's probably my most valuable use of LinkedIn, is to just learn. So I'll show you how to do some of that. It's a good place when you are looking for a job, for job search. You know, when you're actively looking, you want to be more active, have a complete optimized profile, turn on the instructions for recruiters to look at you, because you can do that. It's in your profile when you get it. But there's also the idea of why you should continue it and always be active, is this concept of social recruiting or passive job search. Way back when you get up into higher levels of business, you would sometimes have headhunters contact you. You weren't looking for a job, but they'd contact you because they have a client that needs another someone in your similar position, and we'd like you to consider applying. Well, now we have social recruiters that do that at your level too, especially when you get out and get a little bit of experience. They pay LinkedIn money to have access to everyone's profile, and they go searching for keywords and location. And you may be happy in a job, and then you'll get contacted by a social recruiter. In fact, I see a lot of students that have optimized LinkedIn profiles get approached for jobs. So when they're looking for you, you're not looking for them. That's what a passive job search is about. And of course, the social networking. So Bezos, richest man in the world, isn't he? Just bought a house that apparently costs more than the taxes that Amazon pays every year. This is quoted from him, and your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So that's really your reputation. Well, we've got a new thing here. Not really new, but we also have to be concerned. It's also our first impression when someone Googles our name. And if you think about triggers, what are the triggers to Google your name? When you apply for a job, your name's there. They're going to Google it. Guess what percentage of employers and HR people will Google your name? What percentage do you think will actually Google your name when you've applied for a job? Any thoughts? Guesses?
100%.
100%? Not yet.
90%?
90%, still a little high.
80%?
80, go down 10 more. About 70%. Been pretty consistent. So, 70% of the time, when you apply for a job or a scholarship or a promotion or anything, then someone's going to take your name and Google it to see what they find. So that's the premise behind why you need a LinkedIn, so they find that first. And that may be satisfactory, that they don't look deeper, but it's very likely they're going to go on looking deeper too. The research shows of those 70%, 58% are looking for supporting information, so they just want to get a little bigger picture. They want to know about your persona, 50%. They want to see if anyone's saying anything else about you. But 22% are looking for reasons not to hire you. I mean, they have lots of applicants. They just want to rule out those that are questionable and get right to the ones that have a clean record. 57% found reasons not to hire. So there's a lot of rejection based on what they find there. And if you clean up your accounts and you close make everything an alias, if they don't find anything but LinkedIn or just your professional accounts, that's bad too. You need to show more. Why do you think someone who Googles your name wants to find more than your professional LinkedIn account?
That you're more than like your professional life?
Yes. And why is that important to an employer?
They want to know the full picture, not just what you are.
Yes, it's called culture fit. They want to get an idea of your hobbies, your special interest, what you're like personally, not just your professional face. And they want to find something. So if you clean all that up or make it all private, they don't find that. That's actually a negative. So I'm not saying you should have only a LinkedIn. You just need to have all of your accounts that are found that have something about you that's not objectionable or questionable. And you just clean it up or change it. So it's clearly social media has become the new resume. And your personal brand and just your reputation is defined by those profiles they find and your social activity. Because it's not enough just to have a Twitter account that's sharing stuff that's about your hobbies, or a Pinterest account that's sharing your favorite recipes, or your LinkedIn account that's all your professional resume. It's not just your profiles, it's they want to see what you're sharing on LinkedIn professionally. Because this is what you don't want to happen. You want it all to be positive. And not that that's particularly negative, but someone may look upon it and never even get to the job interview. So I want to look at 7 of the categories. There's many more I could spend. I've taught workshops for a day and a half. There's lots to cover. I would say if there's any area that I don't cover, or that you want a little more depth, or you want more examples, just Google it. Because there's lots of people writing about this subject. So if you look at what people see when they come to your profile, this is called the introduction card. That's what they see at the top of the screen. Most make a judgment of whether they want to connect with you from that. Only a potential employer or someone wants to really connect with you and hire you or promote you or give you a scholarship or give you an internship, or they're likely to dig deeper. So a lot of this stuff is not particularly your resume stuff. So this is where you really make the difference. So you've got your banner header, and mine's pretty simple. I probably should improve it, make it more creative, but that's a pretty big, that's like a banner. That's a banner. So use that. I recommend that you, when you do your self-analysis, your personal SWOT, and find out what your big selling points are, pick 3 keywords to describe you. So that's kind of what I've done. A lot of students in my classes put a favorite business quote. So you can go to Canva. They have a template for the LinkedIn banner header, and you can easily start to make something look nice. It could be something about your hobby, as long as you explain it in your About section. So something that's better than the standard, there's a plain blue one with kind of a simple graphic that's default. That just says, oh, well, they missed the opportunity to sell themselves or sell something about themselves here. Then you have your photo. I'll go into more detail about that next. You have your profile name. Now, obviously, you would put your resume name there. In fact, that's the big thing you should do, is make sure your name matches your resume, so that when someone searches, the resume name that they're seeing will match and come up in a search. The problem is, the display name, you can have a lot of Denny McCorkles, a lot of John Smiths, and it may be hard to find you. So sometimes check on LinkedIn first, check on Google second. If your name doesn't come up at the top, you may want to put a middle initial to see if that helps distinguish you a little bit more. And if you do change it to middle name, middle initial, then put that on your business card. Put that in, that same middle initial, that same full name to match your LinkedIn, so when you do a search, it'll come up. Something I think I'll repeat it later, but your photos, there's a file name, and now that's coming up in a search too. You noticed in the Google search, you have pretty much at the top, you have images of you, but a way to get your best photos there is to put the file name with your name that matches your display name. You've got your headline. I'll go into more detail about that. That's the big one on the introduction card. You've got your location. Recruiters search by location. You don't even know they're there. They pay to do this. And they're looking to fill a job for a client. And it's going to be by keywords, what the position's about, and location. So if you aspire to live in Denver, you should put Denver as your location. Pick the biggest city that you want to be at. I mean, for a long time I was Greeley, and the minute I turned it to Greater Denver, I started getting a lot more people finding me on the keyword social media, and started getting a lot of requests for connections. Contact information, when you push that, it'll have, you can put your phone number, your Gmail, or your email. You can put links to other accounts, so this is where you send them to other professionally used accounts, like Twitter, where you're going to be nice. Pinterest, where it shows a hobby. Instagram, where it shows you're traveling, that you like to travel. But the things that say more about you, you can lead them there by putting that in the contact. Now, I do recommend that you come up with a social email, a social phone number, and use that everywhere you do social, and put your name in it, because that also adds to it. It's called search engine optimization, SEO. So try to get the resume name in a Gmail address. And as far as the phone number, you want to put a, what would happen if someone called your phone number on your resume now? Who would answer it? Would you say, yo, what's up, dude? Oh, sorry, yes, excuse me. How would you respond? So I recommend don't put your personal cell phone number on any social accounts, because this will be public if you allow it to be. I recommend you get a Google Voice number and know that that's only for the social accounts. When someone calls, you can attach it to your phone where it'll say your Google Voice call. You know to, yes, can I help you? Or something nice, and keep yourself professional. Number of connections. I think LinkedIn says you need at least 30 connections to start showing up in a search or something along those numbers. Pretty small. But it's called social proof. When you have 500, it says, well, okay, you're doing something right. You've got a network. So I wouldn't fill up 500 with junk, but try to always progress with your connections. I would set an objective maybe to find 10 new professional connections a week and keep growing. There is your recent experience, so whatever that is, whatever employer that is, even a part-time job, if you have listed an experience. There's your recent education, which hopefully you have listed, and it should be UNC, I suppose. So let's go into some of these. Stop me if you have questions. Any questions? Photo. Most recommended is a headshot. And if you think about branding, I'm coming from the perspective of marketing. Your face is your brand. If you pick a company like Starbucks, you know their logo. They don't have different logos in different places. So that's why on all the accounts you want to be found for, you should have the exact same professional level photo. And more importantly, when I go to a job interview or I go to a networking event, I need to be recognized. It's number one rule of the photo. Will I recognize you in person? So no glamour shots or fish faces or hobby shots, and I'll show you some examples. So don't be your selfie. Put on your best professional photo. And they were taking photos yesterday, right? Did anyone get your photo made? And I'll show you how you need to crop that to be a little bit closer to the shoulders up, because I think they took like waist up, and there's some logic to crop that a bit. So this is what happens if you don't put in a photo. LinkedIn says that you're 21 times more likely to get found if you have a photo. So you need a photo. Not a logo, that's a company. Your photo. Don't use some nostalgia photos when you're a kid. Don't use some group photos where they can't figure out which one are you. Don't use one that you cropped and there's some body parts still there. That's my wife's head. I saw a photo recently, and I hope it wasn't any of you, but the photo was excellent. But there was a hand resting on the shoulder. And I looked at that real closely and I thought, there's no way that could be that person's hand. So be careful about the cropping. You don't want your selfie, even though mountains are in the background. I'm proud of that. You don't want to use too much filtering. And surely you shouldn't wear glasses or sunglasses or a cap, because you can't recognize. And of course, don't get carried away with Snapchat lenses. Full body. I'm glad a long time ago I went to India. But think about when that comes into a stream, and it's what's called a thumbnail photo. They won't be able to recognize your face. And so you lose the logo effect. So that's better, and I took a new one yesterday, so if they ever send it to me, I'll change it. I think it'll look better. But that's what I mean when I say a face shot. And it should be the same across all your professional networks. So to summarize, I would add one more thing at the bottom. There's a couple companies. You can Google Snapper Photo Analyzer, and it'll tell you what's good or bad from like shadows and light. It'll tell you how your photos, if it's good for LinkedIn. Also go to Photo Feeler, and 10 people will judge you on things like your trustworthiness based on. So things such as smile. You've got to look happy, even if you have to fake it. Your photo should look happy, because they want to hire happy people. Good lighting. I think one of these said that my background for my current photo wasn't right because it was outdoors. It needs to be a plain background. Questions about photo? Headline. Besides the photo, which is the first thing people notice, headline would be the second most important thing you put on your LinkedIn profile. And that's one that's up for debate of what goes there. I'll give you my opinion. Realize that everyone that teaches LinkedIn, they'll have different viewpoints of what goes where. I think the key thing is that you want to use words that people would use to search to find you for a job. That's the key. So mine, I want to be found on digital, social, and LinkedIn. I've updated it 30 times over the years. So those keywords are in there. I'm saying a little bit about my main position, even though that's not actually my title. And then I'm going on and say what I do, more of a benefits. Here's a student of a few years ago. She was interested in a nonprofit, and that's where she ended up working. So you can see that first you state that you're a student. Now there's a big plus to saying you're a student if that's your main occupation now, because people are more open to connect with you and maybe help you. And it kind of implies, well, soon I'm going to need a job. So the first part is you don't need to spell out University of Northern Colorado because that's already in your education, and that'll help you in a search. You use up too many characters. It's 120 characters, so you're limited to space. The second part is state what you want to be found for. And be very direct. I want a career in. If you're a freshman, sophomore, maybe a junior, you may just still say your emphasis. I'm working toward a career in marketing. But not a lot of people are searching the word marketing to get a job. It's something more specific. So if you can, and you narrow down a focus, instead of saying accounting, maybe tax accounting. Instead of saying computer systems, if you really want to be a coder, I don't know if that's the right language, then you use that word. What are the words that people would search for you? And that's job listings that would help you with that. Madison Mars graduated a few years ago again. She mentioned student, marketing, and leadership. And if you notice, she added a benefit statement and then the key areas that she wants to be found for. So 2 parts, your student status or work status. Second part is the key words about the position or job or career that you would want in the future. Alexander wanted to go into research. He is working in research. Marketing student at UNCO, aspiring research analyst. He added some extras, which I encourage if there's space, that he was part of Delta Sigma Pi. Hashtags don't matter much in LinkedIn as others, but that could be a plus. I've even started to recommend, because I've seen it used, is put a few emojis at the end for hobbies. So if you're into skiing, have a little skiing emoji. And the next section is called the About section. You have 2,600 characters. The last sentence can be, my hobbies are, and that would explain those emojis. But make sure it's an emoji that has some relevance to your career in the future. Because that's hobbies, special interest, passion projects that have nothing to do with your career is something you've got to show to reveal yourself. And more importantly, I'll show you how you translate those hobbies into skills that would apply to the future job. That's important. So again, a summary of some things I mentioned about emojis. Number 6, have a similar headline across all your networks so it can be easily found too. So you want consistency because that's consistency of branding. The About. Headline gets you found. The About sells you bigger than anything else. Now this varies across. You'll find, it's good to learn from other people that in the keyword search for other people that are like your interest. See how they're doing their About. Some get carried away and it's more like a sales pitch for their company. Don't do that. Some do all bullet points, their accomplishments. Well, that should be in other sections, so I wouldn't do that either, especially as a student. You need to tell your brand story. If you really have a focus, you really have an emphasis you're excited about, then come up with a 2,600, somewhere within 2,600 characters, it's quite a lot of space, explaining what led you to your major or to your emphasis, and why you're excited about working in it. Show some excitement in it. It's probably the most important part if you think about sending out resumes and writing a cover letter that's customized to the particular company you're at. Well, this is not really customized that much, but it's really selling you in the biggest way of anything on your profile. So if you think about it, I find you, I see your photo, I see your headline, the next thing I'll possibly read is your About. I won't get down to the other detailed stuff in your resume until you convince me to go further. So it's hard, this is what's hard to see, but the thing to say, I would say, is short paragraphs so it's easy to scan, maybe use some bullet points, have spaces between paragraphs, just tell your story. And if you go back and read mine later, you'll see I just talk about I love social media. And then I explain why. Not because I like likes and comments and trying to go viral, because I use it to learn. So explain yourself. Here's a student's About from not too long ago. She was really excited about copywriting. She liked to write, so she explained how she got into this interest of copywriting and writing. She wrote for a blog that paid her while she was a student. She wrote for some UNC blogs, and she just got all this writing experience because that's what she loved to do. It was her passion. And she went back to California, and she's working as basically a copywriter, content marketer for a well-known company. And this one was Warren Woods. His passion was tied to craft beer and running a small business, and he opened up a brew pub on 16th for several years. And recently it was bought out by somebody else, and he moved. I don't know where he moved, but I'm sure he's dealing with craft beer because that was what he liked. So show your passions. Start from your headline. You're a student in your headline. Start your first paragraph. Explain that. The second is your career. That's your second paragraph. I want a career. And then the third goes on to tell your story. Why? And then end it with a call to action. So this is a marketing thing. Don't just leave it. Say, what do I now want the reader to do? And usually it's, if you're interested in connecting with me or talking further about career opportunities, contact me and give a Gmail. Give your social email. So that's what's called a call to action. What do I do next after I've read your story? And then how do I contact you easily? Even though there's a button to do so, repeat it. Questions? Yes?
Can it be like kind of bad to have something like that long? Because a lot of people like really long for a lot to read.
Well, I think it'd be easier if it had smaller paragraphs.
Okay.
I think people will read what they want. I mean, if you write a good, kind of lead people through it, I'll read it. It just depends. Most people will connect with you by looking only at your headline. Who are you? What's the keywords? That's enough. I'll connect. But if we're talking about an employer or someone who wants to hire you, that entices them to go further and read your resume part.
If they want the information.
Yes. But you've got to make it easy to skim, so I can read bits and pieces. And now they're more accepting to put some bullet points, use some emojis occasionally. I'd use that in mine. Short, if it tells your story. If it just lists things that are elsewhere in your profile, that's redundant, that's boring. So this is your chance to shine. And that's why I would say that's why you want to write something, maybe 5 different versions, 5 different angles, and get some feedback from friends or professors. See what they think. And try that. But don't just throw something out there with little thought. That could be your most important lead. Because think about an employer. Everyone's wanting a job in something. But this is where you can show you really want it. You really have a passion. Education. This is where we kind of leave it blank almost. You fill in the degree. Be sure to add a minor if you have one. It shows the years. But you've heard of the halo effect? Do you know what the halo effect is? So you want, if you show the credentials of your university, not everyone knows what UNC is about. I mean, yeah, they've got university, yes, but they don't necessarily know that we're equal in accreditation of all the other universities in Colorado, and 20-something% of all universities are accredited. Only 20% of business schools are accredited. So we're in a pretty elite group. And maybe not everyone that's looking at your profile will realize, oh, UNC is accredited? So you want to put these statements. Because if you sell your university, you're selling yourself. That's the halo effect. And if you do good things and share on the internet your accomplishments and such, that's halo effect to the university. It makes the university look better. So most recruiters will know about AACSB. Employers may not. But we've also won the Malcolm Baldrige Quality Award. And most employers would know that because that's a big, prestigious award for businesses. So you may even add a little bit more narrative. There's a space to add spot. Just again, keep it short and simple. But here's someone talking, add some narrative there. And also you can add a link to something. Link to the Monfort College of Business page. So they can go and see what's going on with the college. And if you have activities in, I think it's in their organizations, you're in a clubs or something, you can check a box, or there's a place where you can say, yes, connect this to my education, and that'll show up in your profile too. Other things that are will support your education, of course, is your courses. So you can't list all your courses you've taken, but for the kind of career focus you have, which courses in the business school, across campus, that really would show some credentials for preparing for your career. And as your career changes, you change that. If you had any certifications, we're starting to get into more certifications. Marketing is adding these to a lot of our classes, and some new digital marketing classes for a minor. That's a credential from a third party outside. So if you get those, and you can get those on your own without classes, but that shows a lot to your education. You're educating yourself beyond what's required in a class. If you've been in organizations, especially if they're business ones or any organizations, it does lead back to show what you're potentially learning. Honors and awards, of course, shows accomplishments. So not everything has to be about business or about professional, because it needs to show a more picture of you, hobbies and interests too. Also, you can connect with groups. And if you noticed, you can follow influencers, which will give you things in your feed to learn from. You can follow your favorite companies to keep track of what they're sharing from their LinkedIn pages. But go in and join some groups, and maybe even be active with some groups, because it shows on your profile your membership in those groups. and your activity would make it even stronger. It's showing your activities. But it adds to SEO. If you're looking for a job in social media and you've joined 4 or 5 major social media groups, that strengthens being found for SEO or for social media. Oh, the top one, be sure to join the Monfort College of Business alumni and friends, because that's your connection. I'll mention that a little later. So there's other things, skills and endorsements, recommendations. All these things kind of support the education section. So make sure you're complete with all those things that you can. And there's some other things too. I can't go over all the different sections. And attach something if you have it. That's important. There is, if you have a project from a class, there is a separate project section. Let's see. I guess I got to use this thing. And that's, I would say that's a strong selling point for MCB students. How many have had major projects in your classes? I would say most of you. I know the marketing students get it in almost every class. So the project section is where you should put your project. Be specific details and add that narrative about what you learned from it. What were skills developed? And that's impressive because a lot of schools, our competing schools, have very large classes. They can't do projects with 100 people in the class. Think of how big the groups would be. A lot of you get small projects. That's really a distinguishing selling point for the MCB, for your degree. So fill that up. And the attachment thing is very important. It's called rich media. You can actually upload or web link, if you have it on a Google Doc, as a Google Drive file. You can attach that so they can click through and see your project. You know, it's a portfolio. That's easy. Be sure to do at least 2 or 3 of your best projects because that stands out as uniqueness on LinkedIn. Questions about education? Well, number 5, we're going to 7. Getting close. Experience. Any job you have can be turned into benefit if you explain it. So notice this. Is there an intern? So your internship that you're required to take should be in the experience. It says, now on the desktop it says experience. I think in the app it says work experience. But it can be paid or unpaid. It can be volunteer, even though there's a separate section for volunteering if you want to separate it out. Summer job, part-time job. So this, you can see they explain basically what they did. And look at the bottom. Through this experience, I developed time management skills, business prospecting skills, relationship management skills, and overall how to be a professional. So now you're not just doing a job, an intern, you're telling them what you got from it. What did you learn? What skills were developed? And then, of course, there's a skills section where you can add those skills to that so you can get endorsements for it. Here's someone worked as a server. You say, well, would you even put that on, maybe not a resume because you only have 1 page, but LinkedIn. Most importantly, this job, if you look at the bottom, most importantly, this job relies on, let me get the cursor anyway, relies on people skills. With each table, I alter my approach very so slightly based on the demeanor and so forth. So again, narrative that sells you beyond just, I had a job. Line cook. Look at the bottom. I am able to work in fast-paced and high-stress environments because of this position. That's a big selling point from what on the surface looks like shouldn't even go on a resume. And probably you don't have room for those kind of jobs. Here's a manager, a summer job, or well, I guess, yeah, this may have been a full-time job. It basically tells what they did. I've learned customer service skills and inventory management skills through this experience. So that's the beauty of LinkedIn. You can explain these things and apply, direct it towards your future career. Other things, internships, bullet points are good, spacing. I seem to remember you can't get spaces in some of these categories, so maybe that's why we don't see much in these examples. Server at Red Lobster. Managing multiple tables in a fairly large restaurant made every step and every minute matter. I learned to be effective and purposeful in everything I did and said. So don't just describe the duties. And if you had some specific accomplishments, like I was the server of the year or server of the month, or I had the biggest tips, or if it's something notable, measurable, you'd want to add that in there too, along with what did you learn from that. even a position in an organization. Being a member, there's an organizational section, but being a leader, that's an experience. So you can turn that into something. So if you have anything I learned from it, think through where can I put that on my LinkedIn profile and explain it. Because that justifies your qualifications. So the thing I would add here is this idea of cars, or sometimes they talk about stars for job interviews. Well, I do another acronym, CARS, because you're driving along your career path. Get it? So what's the context? That's usually the stuff you fill in about dates and what the job is. What are the activities? That's where you'd explain what you're doing, what you did in that job. Don't list the more important duties or activities, tasks. R is your accomplishments or results. And an S is the skills and learning. And then yes, for experience, you can upload attachments too. So those are rich attachments, or something you can't do in a physical resume, even electronic, and that's more selling for you. Some will look at it, some won't. But if they want to hire you and spend all that money investing in you, they'll dig deep into your profile and links because they want to know. 6, targeted connections. It does no good to be active on LinkedIn if you don't have any connections to read it. And you know what an algorithm is? Just because I have 10,000 connections doesn't mean that when I share something, they're going to all see it. Because if there hasn't been any interaction with any of those 10,000, maybe none will see it. So only the people that interacted with you will see the second time, the third time, the more times that you share. So you've got to think about always building your network. So I would say before you start doing this, build your profile first. Get it right so that when people come to see if they want to connect with you in your request, they see your best selling points. And they say, yes, I want to connect with that person. So there's a lot of things you could consider. Start with, who do you already know? From work, from interns, from classmates, colleagues at the internship, part-time job. I mean, just start to connect with people you know. And if you know they know you, you just press the connect button. It's pretty quick. Then I would look at, try to connect with everybody I meet, new to you. And if you do physical networking, or if you have a guest speaker, it's pretty easy to connect with them. Because you've got a mutual reason to connect. You say, I saw you speak, or I met you at this Chamber of Commerce event, or I introduced, we chatted briefly about this at the career fair tomorrow. That's a personal message now. You can actually get a connection with professionals when you do that. Next, don't forget alumni. Anyone use the alumni search in LinkedIn? Try that. Search for your favorite company, then click the button to find UNC alumni and see who's working there already. Because that's who you want to connect with and show them your value. And then my main reason to use LinkedIn, besides teaching it and learning all the ins and outs, is I want to learn. So I try to connect with people who write blog posts and write my favorite books, and I want to learn from them. They share good stuff. That's their job. I mean, that's the thing they build for their personal branding, their speaker business, is they share good stuff. And that's where it's harder to connect. You may actually have to follow. So there's two ways to, connect means I've requested to connect with you, and you'll see what I'm sharing, and I'll see what you're sharing. That's connection. Most of the groups, that's the way you would do. But when you're going to the influencers, like Richard Branson or Elon Musk, well, if you think they share good stuff that you will learn from, they probably won't connect with you, so you just follow. Just follow. How am I with time? Almost out? So if you look at the search function, you can see, you can search by people, by topics of content, by groups. People are already in groups. And you'll see their small thumbnail photo. See, that's why it's important to have a good photo that's bright, and it's hopefully a little more focused on the face, because I can't really see that so easily. That one's maybe too close. And you can sort by all kinds of variables here. And when you press the connect, you'll get an invitation or ask, do you want to add a note? If it's somebody they don't know you, you should add a little note and just explain the relationship and request. And you'll be surprised how many people request not knowing you because you found a mutual interest to talk about or to mention. This is a book author. I read his book. I wanted to connect with him. Just thought because I've found that if you write it properly, they'll connect with you if they're allowed, if they still have the available up to 30,000, I believe. And he not only said, "Oh yes, I'm happy to connect. I want to give you a copy of my book," which I then told him, "I've already read your book. Thank you." So those you know, those you meet, those you want to know and learn from. Don't forget the learn from part. Last. Everything we've talked about is about vanity. Your profile is about you. Your resume is about you. So if you want people to connect, and you've got to add value to that relationship, to remember you. And that's where social activity comes into play. The rule of thumb is 80-20. 20% about you and your company, 80% about added value, what you're learning. So things like you got to find content to share. Anyone used Flipboard? Try the Flipboard app. Put in your keywords, subscribe to keywords, and you'll find lots of new things to learn from. A couple clicks, you're sharing it on LinkedIn. Add some comment. So, that's what curation is about. You consume something, you share it, share what you're learning, you join in the conversations, and maybe even create some original if you go into blogging or adding content to the. So learning, again, it's too small. I knew it'd be too small to read, but sharing an article and just explaining a little bit about what it's about. If you notice the highlighted, that's tags. That's an at mention, they call it. You want to tag people so the author will know that you shared their writing or their blog post, and then when they come, they may share it into their network, and you get a lot broader exposure. Sometimes it's small, but don't leave out the tags. These are a couple very strong influencers in job search and LinkedIn development, and notice they both replied back, which means that share got into their network. My name was exposed to their huge networks. Show them what you're thinking. So join in the conversation. Someone shares something you learn from, then add your comment and tag the people there. And again, they recognize when someone tags you, you thank them and tag them. You know, it's gets you into bigger networks. Here's another article shared by LinkedIn editors that I liked, and I added what I knew about it. And you might think, well, expert. You're not an expert to add your thoughts. Add your point of view as a student and say so. From my perspective as a student, I think this. And that builds your reputation, and it gets you noticed. And then one of my connections asked, what's your favorite books of the year? So I went in and gave some favorite books and tagged the authors, and almost every one of them came back to that and made a comment about it. What are you doing? Tomorrow I'm giving bonus points to my senior students for sharing a professional selfie. It's my one class. They have to go. So a lot of you have to go. Tomorrow's the career fair. Share that you're there. It may even include, you're attending a conference. Show people what you're learning and what you're doing and what you're accomplishing live as you're doing it. Tag the people that you're meeting. Tag the people that you're listening to. I mean, this one I actually had a professional selfie. So put a visual to it if you can. And I don't know if you noticed, when I do these things, I get the biggest number of views. That may not seem like much, but most of my things I share get 400, 500. But when I share that I'm at an event, all the contacts that know me tend to like it or even some comment. So they're very popular. But if all I do is share stuff I'm doing, it's vanity. So 80% needs to be the added value. 20% is sharing about yourself. So to sum up, you are what you social share. Try to stay on focus. You want to be known as someone who really is passionate about a particular type of job, that's all you should share. 80% of the time you should share what you're learning about that. Other 20% share about where you're at. Questions? So do you want to get some new connections? So let me show you how. How are we with time?
Yeah.
We have a few minutes?
Yep.
If you go to pull out your phones, if you have the LinkedIn app.
You should have the app.
If you don't, it's a good time to.
I just did it in like 5 seconds.
You'll need to sign in, of course. And if you go to the bottom of the app, those of you already into it, and click this, that's your network, and then go over to the side and click this, you'll get a Find Nearby. Turn it on, and then you'll start to see everyone you're near in this room will start to pop up, and you click it, you're connected. Or you'll be connecting that quick. So when you're at an event and you don't need to write notes, that's a good way to get new connections, because you're at an event with a mutual interest, so that's important. And you're welcome to connect with me too at any time, but so I'm seeing quite a few of you pop up, most of you already connected with. Just start clicking to say you're willing, and if they approve it, that's how you get new connections when you're at an event. A second way, say I meet you, and you may not always want to have a business card. I mean, they're slowly disappearing. So what you do is you pull out your app, and you click right up there at the search bar. It'll come up with a QR code, and you can either scan somebody's QR code or show yours, and that's how you connect to someone instead of connecting with a business card. Questions? Oops. No questions? Okay. Welcome you to connect with me to learn more about LinkedIn. And I would suggest you try to connect with some of your professors. Some are active, some are not. Hopefully the ones here will start being more active. You can learn from them through their LinkedIn, hopefully. And again, there's the link if you want to get a copy of the slideshow and see the examples more specifically or more clearly. And there's where I'm connected on other networks. Thanks for coming.